during the pandemic, I kind of shifted a little bit, because we had to change. And I called up a marketing lady locally and I was like, hey, everybody's in quarantine. I want to start marketing to them on Facebook and Instagram to come see Dr. Jen because we're going to have a bunch of pregnant ladies walking around here. And sure enough, my office was filled with pregnancy patients after during the pandemic. So marketing strategy wise, I think that was one of the best moves I made was during the pandemic for sure.
Well, hello, everybody. Dr. Ron Oberstein, president of Life Chiropractic College West, and I am excited to bring to you a phenomenal Life by Life West because we have a great guest with us. I've got my partner in life and health and everything else, my financial partner, everything. Dr. Mary. Mary, welcome. It's so good to see you.
You too?
No, I just saw you probably 3 hours ago. I don't know what it was, but it's still always.
I'll be seeing you in another hour.
There you go. Exactly. But always good to see you. And we've got a really special guest, someone who I've gotten to know very, very well. And Mary, also you too, over the last 4 to 5 months and probably since March, actually. And we have Dr. Jennifer Howard with us coming at us from Bellevue, Nebraska. Welcome, Dr. Jen. Good to see you.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And a little bit of Dr. Jen's background for our viewers. Dr. Jen graduated from Palmer College in Davenport, Iowa in 2008, immediately came back to Nebraska. She's an Omaha girl or woman, born and raised in Omaha and around Omaha. And she came back associated for about 6 months and they just opened her own place. And she was in practice for 15 years and steadily going in practice and growing and having a phenomenal practice, peds and pregnancy and family practice until she found a new passion, a new calling when Life West actually opened the college up in Nebraska. And Dr. Jen truly just applied for the job and as the director of our campus and boom, hands down, got the job, flying colors, and she retired out of active practice and now has moved into the higher ed space. And it's really exciting to see that and watch her grow in that. But also just a little bit about Dr. Jen is that, she was involved locally, got involved in the political scene as far as the state association, the NCPA. She was already vice president and just recently kind of stepped off that role because of the college role. But she has been involved in a lot of things in Nebraska. And if you don't know a lot about Nebraska, it is a very strong chiropractic state. They're doing something very, very right there. And so we're just excited, Dr. Jen, to have you. I love your Lion T-shirt there for being a Detroit boy. And I don't know how you got hooked into the Lions from Kansas, being in Nebraska. I figured you'd be Kansas City or something like that,
Yeah, no, my husband actually got me hooked on the Lions. He's a lover of Barry Sanders. And, as a true Husker fan, we always love a team that, doesn't always have the best record. But I have a feeling about this year that Detroit's going to be great.
Well, I have to tell you, I've had that feeling for the last 63 years and 66, actually. I had feelings when I was born, but it's what keeps us Lion fans going, right? There's always next season, right? That's our motto. Next season. I think we were the first ones to ever wear bags on our heads, in the stands, right? With eye holes cut out, for the owners to see. But I'm glad because we do have opening night tonight in the NFL. That's what the recording date of tonight is that. And the Lions are playing the Chiefs and it should be a fun game. And I got it taped and I'm excited. Driving here, right, Mary? I called you up on my way to the college saying, oh my God, I forgot to tape the game. Would you? And so she went and taped it for me. So that's what us Lion fans do. Hey, Dr. Give us some insight, share with us. First of all, I want to know, how'd you get in the car? How did you get into chiropractic? Did you find chiropractic? Did chiropractic find you? Tell us what took place around that.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a very medically based family. I was actually going to be in nursing school. So I was working at the med center in the surgical clinic and as a secretary, and I couldn't sit there longer than 5 minutes without popping Advil because I couldn't sit in a chair. And so my best friend, Dr. Laura Meredith, her sister graduated from Palmer. And when she came back from school, I was her first patient. So she took me through the x-ray process, new patient exam, all the things. And I felt better. And I was like, heck, I don't want to be a nurse. I don't feel like that's for me. And she's like, you'd be a great chiropractic assistant. And I said, no way. I'm going to be a doctor. And so literally within like 3 or 4 months from receiving my first adjustment, I packed up and moved down to Davenport, Iowa with my best friend, Laura, who was also in Palmer. So it was very quick, very whirlwind, but definitely was the right thing for me to do.
And you had all the classes needed to start?
I had to take a couple accelerated courses that summer. So I got in with the 90 credits, the non-traditional route. And then while I was at Palmer, I took additional courses at night, maybe my second or third year of schooling to get my bachelor's degree on the same day as my DC degree.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So let's just step back for a second because Dr. Marie,
yes,
you guys went to school together. And
yes. So Dr.
Marie was the chiropractor who adjusted you. Laura and Marie are sisters. I know that.
Laura and Marie are sisters. Yeah. So I went to high school with Laura. So when I started high school, I was at a public school. I had transferred to a small Catholic school where Laura was at. And, she didn't really like me at first. And then we went down to University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and we became great friends there. Right. I gave her so much flack for going off to chiropractic school because I did not understand it. I was taught, oh, that's quackery, that's this, that's that, because that's what people told me, not because I didn't know anything. Yeah. And then when Marie came back, she educated me on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. And off I went.
Yeah. And then did you know Laura was going to school, her sister?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Laura was at Lincoln with me. She left to go to chiropractic school. I was left in Nebraska. And then her sister came back from Palmer. Yeah. And then I shortly left after that. So, yeah.
That is so cool. That's so cool. It's so interesting how chiropractic finds people, I mean, listen, you had back pain, right? You couldn't sit for a long time. That's what you said, right? And popping Advil and doing whatever. And then you see that chiropractic is so much more than back pain, I mean, it's kind of like going to Starbucks for a black cup of coffee, it's just amazing how whatever that is that draws the person in. And then you kind of just poof. Once you sit in class, you go, wow, this isn't even about back pain. This is truly about life. It's truly about health. It's about, optimizing our well-being. It's just so cool. It's just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I was totally unaware what chiropractic was and what it could do for you. And I was still learning after I graduated. So, when I got involved with the ICPA, that's when it really opened my eyes to the whole salutogenic model and, what chiropractic truly was about.
So I want to jump forward now, since you just mentioned the ICPA.
Yeah.
So you graduated, you worked in another office for a period of time. And then knowing you, the little bit of how I know you're a go-getter. You're a get stuff done person. So
Absolutely.
You probably, right? So I'm assuming that you were working in another office and you couldn't wait to open your own practice.
Yeah, that situation was unique. I covered for a doctor that was on medical leave, and it just became a situation where it wasn't the right relationship. So my brother actually loaned me money in 2008 during the whole financial crisis, right? Like gas was like $5 a gallon. And I had to have 20% down on a loan. And so he had loaned me some money to put 20% down. And I was able to open my business just 2 miles away from where I was at.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was I never thought that I wanted to work by myself, but I did love being my own boss. So, going from that job to now this job where I have multiple bosses, I sometimes have to rein it in a little bit and remind myself or be reminded, hey, Dr. Jen, you're not in charge here all the time. We got to make sure we make these decisions together.
It's sometimes hard to go from that, like solo making the decisions to being a team player.
Absolutely. Because I am the type of person that will make a decision like immediately. I'm like, yep, that's what I want. That's what I'm going to do. And so I've really had to step back a little bit and remind myself not to do that all the time.
Yeah. The other thing too, I don't know if you've noticed, but higher ed is not, it's a slow moving boat.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of if it wants to leave,
have to go through.
Yeah, if it wants to leave the dock, it just doesn't, you don't put it reverse and back. It's got to like turn like this, and when I first got into higher ed, that Mary, this, that's what drove me crazy. Coming from the chiropractic practice point of view, right? It was like, you want to change something that you learn on Saturday, Monday morning, you go in the office, say, guys, let's get together. This is what we're going to do different, or we'll implement this next week. Take a look at this, but this is where we're going, what we're doing, and it's done, and it's very, very different when you've got, 800-900 people around, that kind of thing. It doesn't move as quickly. But then you talk about pregnancy and peds, because you talked to Mary, you talk about ICPA. Like what, Jen, you brought that up. How did you start moving in that direction, and what'd that look like for you?
Yeah. I had a really hard time staying pregnant. Went through a lot of miscarriages. Think about a half a dozen or so with my spouse. And even while I was at Palmer, there was a gentleman I dated while I was at Palmer, and I had a miscarriage while I went through school. Did I know while I was going through Palmer that I was going to have these problems 10 years later? No. So it just was a continuous struggle for me. So once my husband and I decided that we were going to have a family, I was like, hey, I really want to learn how to take care of kids better, and I also really loved reaching out and helping pregnant women through that process. It was kind of like a healing mechanism for me, because I could talk to them about my loss. They could talk to me if they were having issues, and we just kind of went through that journey together. And it, because miscarriage, it's not always something that people like to talk about. And that was my way of healing through that. So that was how I initially got into the ICPA. And then I really love adjusting pregnant women. If I could do that all day long, I would do that. So when a baby kicks back at you and you feel that, I miss that feeling internally, if you will. So that was kind of my jam.
Yeah.
Well, I feel you on that. When people would ask me, if you weren't a chiropractor, what would you do? And I answer quickly. I said, I'd be a midwife.
Absolutely.
For that reason. So,
yep.
So tell us just about the journey, because we've had other chiropractors on who talked about, I think their practice is peds and, pediatrics and pregnancy. How was that, building that kind of practice? Like, what did you do? What connections did you make to get pregnant women and babies and?
Yeah. So I started to take classes. Obviously, I went through the entire ICPA series, and I connected with my own OB-GYN, and she was a referral source constantly. Every time I would go in there, I would leave my cards or a referral pad, and she was constantly sending women that either were uncomfortable during their pregnancy. She finally understood that, hey, I can send them to Jen and I trust her, or baby just wasn't in the right position. So helping create that space for baby to move around and get in that position that's optimal for them. I was able to educate her on that. I also had relationships with my child's pediatrician and other pediatricians around town, and took spinning babies with a bunch of nurses. So I took that multiple times locally, and just created something different that not everybody else was doing in their office at that time, and kind of created this procedure of like, I'm going to spend extra time with every pregnant woman, so then they tell everybody about me, type of thing, One of the really cool things that I I think that I thought was neat during the pandemic. I kind of shifted a little bit, because we had to change. And I called up a marketing lady locally and I was like, hey, everybody's in quarantine. I want to start marketing to them on Facebook and Instagram to come see Dr. Jen because we're going to have a bunch of pregnant ladies walking around here. And sure enough, my office was filled
Right
with
on.
pregnancy patients after like during the pandemic. So,
Yeah.
marketing strategy wise, I think that was one of the best moves I made was during the pandemic for sure.
That is so cool. And, it's funny because I think we all know this. And, obviously, I didn't mention in the introduction, you have three boys, right? A set of twins, right? And,
Twins, I had a VBAC with them, and Jameson's 18 months older.
right.
So a 7-year-old and almost twin 6-year-olds.
Right.
Wow.
And going through, first of all, what I was going to say was that obviously the one thing that pregnant women, when they're going through that season of their life, they're usually around a lot of other pregnant women, whether it's in a birthing class or wherever it might be, they're just around. Right. And so they are. I love it because it really is a word of mouth thing once it starts to spread, once you plant the seeds, water it, and then boom, it takes off. But I think the cool thing is like, obviously, you were able to have children. Obviously, you said you went through about 6 miscarriages and you were able to have children. And there's, I don't know. And I'm talking to 2 women with kids and obviously you went through the miscarriage cycle, and Mary, I don't think you didn't, at least not with us together. But there's the stigma that I see isn't so much that women don't want to talk about it. That could be true. Very, very true. I can't speak for that. But I think a lot of the stigma is that people on the outside, maybe it's even a male perspective, and I don't want to put this on all men, but the perspective is, okay, that's okay. It just wasn't supposed to happen. Just move on, and go forth, right? And that could be true on a physiological level, but not looking at the emotional side of it, right? And be able to see what's there. I think that's such an important thing. And when you said that people don't necessarily talk about it, my sense that hit me was that it was more, they're not talking about it because of the emotional factor that's never really brought up.
Sure. Yeah. And it may be generational too. Like, my family, my mom, I didn't feel like my mom really wanted to talk much about it, just like, okay, I think it's a generational thing because, there are certain generations that I feel like we just kind of suppress all of our emotions and don't express those things. And, that was just my way around it, was talking with my patients.
It's so, I think it's beautiful, so cathartic. But just to ask the both of you this, and that's really more of a question that I have, a true question I have. It's coming from a male perspective. I mean, do women talk about miscarriages with other women and the emotional attachment that could still be there, or whatever it is? I don't know what the emotion is around it, but because obviously I haven't gone through it. But is that something that's brought up a lot, or is it still something that's kind of, I don't know, repressed, suppressed? I really don't know the right word for it.
Yeah, I think when I went through this, especially with my husband, we talked about it, but maybe not as much as we could have. Yeah, I definitely think, between man and woman, there is a little bit difference, or maybe like, let's not talk about it because this is sad, and just move on. And, I think talking about it helps heal, helps you realize that there was life there, and that you had attachments, even though something was so early on, so yeah.
And I agree with you that it is I think it's generational as well. And I think that, 40, 50 years ago, yeah, it wasn't looked at as a loss. It was looked at as like, oh, that's what happened. Or like, you wouldn't even tell people, but if you did, it was like, okay, well, we don't need to talk about it. Whereas now the acknowledgement is you went through a loss. So we need to.
And it's not anything to be ashamed of,
Oh, definitely not. But it's more like, are you okay? Let's holding the woman as, wow, you really had a loss. And I really think that men coming from that standpoint of like being more, how do we fix this? and realizing there's no fixing. It's a process that we just have to sit with the woman.
Right.
And walk alongside her and do nothing but just have her be seen. Just saying, I understand what you went through.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I see you.
Maybe it's more common now than it was in the past. And so, that may have something to do with it as well.
But the other piece that might be that could be a big play in this is that, then if a woman walks around thinking, especially after they have a second miscarriage, walk around thinking, what's wrong with me? Like, what's wrong with my body? Right? Where they internalize that, and and that's where chiropractic plays such a beautiful role in teaching people that there's nothing wrong, that your body.
Yeah, well, I for sure blamed myself. It was really like, what is wrong with me? This is my fault type. That's how I felt. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of the healing process. Like when you finally got pregnant, right? Was there something that shifted in you beforehand that made that happen, or during the pregnancy, that kind of thing?
I had done a deep dive to genetically. I probably wasn't like feeding myself the best, health wise. I probably didn't have that great of a diet, and I still could work on my diet every day. I had done some genetic testing and found out that I was homozygous MTHFR. So my body doesn't, if that gene is turned on, does not reduce or take folic acid and break it down the way that it's supposed to. And so I was challenged in that department. So once I found that out, I started supplementing correctly and eating better. And then it was like, boom, a light switch. It just happened and it stuck.
Nice.
Wow. Great.
Nice. I mean, this could be a whole podcast in itself. Listen, it really is, because it's such a, you said it, Jen, at the beginning, you said like a stigma, there is a stigma, and yet something is branching out of that also, is it Mary, what's the birthday that's celebrated? Is it a rainbow birthday? Is that the term?
Yeah. I think, well, I don't know what it's called. Well, there's like National Miscarriage Day. There's Rainbow Baby Day. There's just a lot more acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Which is so healing for women.
Absolutely.
Because even if you haven't had a miscarriage yourself, someone who's had a miscarriage who you were probably supportive of. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, Mary, we had a very dear friend of ours, and still a dear friend of ours, who had a stillborn and wanted to deliver the stillborn, chose to deliver the stillborn. And so waited, Jen. And I remember it was Mother's Day, actually, I think, and we were in Nordstrom's, right? And she was with us, and people were coming up saying, "Oh my gosh, how many months pregnant are you?" And, and all this stuff. And it was like, I remember just feeling like inside, just kind of torn, that kind of thing. But I think that it is something that needs to come out. And I want to just acknowledge you, Jen, Dr. Jen, because, talking about it with women and in your practice, you're healing, yes, but it's also allowing other people the space to not just heal, but understand more and realize that they can talk about it. Because, my doctor, I've never had one, but I'm talking to my doctor about it. I can talk to anybody about it, right? And be able to move forward, because that's how healing takes place. So, thank you, for being an advocate of that, because I think it's something that as we move forward, I just want to move into a quick topic before we kind of wrap up. And that's, you got involved, man. You all of a sudden, you graduate, you go out, you start this, peds and pregnancy, you're going back to school, do the ICPA, which is who I love. And, Jeannie Ohm and I were very close, and Justin, her son, and I love him. And you're doing all these things, and then you get involved politically. Right.
Right.
And just share with us in a few minutes, like how that evolution took place.
Yeah. When I was at Palmer, I got involved in nothing. I went to school and then I went home. I felt like I missed the part of being part of the chiropractic college, just because I was in and out of there.
And that is so not like you. That is
right.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm involved in all the things now. So after my first son, Jameson, was born, he was about 6 months old. I ran for district representative on our Chiropractic Association's board, and I got that position. A couple years later, the incoming president asked me to be the secretary. So I was the secretary for a couple of years, and then with our board, you kind of ascend into the next positions. And so most recently, I was the vice president, and was in line to be president. But with taking this job and not wanting to pose any conflicts of interest time-wise with the college, I wanted to, step away from that and allow somebody else to step up into that position. So I stepped down for about a month. And then in August, I ran for my district representative seat again and was elected. So I'm still involved with the state association. And, I like being there to represent them and have a voice in the room. And I really like communicating to the members and asking them, what do you need from us? That way we're getting the education they want, that they're interested in. It's not just what Dr. Jen wants or, Dr. Bob wants, So that's kind of my NCPA in a nutshell.
Yeah, but I think it's important for our viewers to hear because, it's like we could just take it. And I've got like a prescription that I give to my graduates, and that's that join your association, just join up. But we know associations are always looking for people and if you get one person who's going to do a little work that's all volunteer, they're going to give them 3 pieces of work and then 10 pieces of work. Before you know it, they're working full time. And that's cool to do after you get your practice established, right? But join them, participate, contribute financially, show up at events and that kind of stuff. But get your first couple of years, under your feet, and build your foundation and your practice, and then dive in, right? And it's kind of like what you did, obviously, because you waited until and you dove in at 6 months after birth. I mean, if not like you had nothing on your plate.
Later, I had twins.
This is crazy.
So I'm a glutton for punishment.
Probably, I don't know, but it's like I think it's just so cool because it really just shows how involved you can one can be, and it is important to get involved. So cool.
Our association, if I could say one thing, the students that are going to be here at the Bellevue campus, they're going to be able to be involved in the state association with our continuing education events and all of those things. Like they welcome students. And I tell you what, the Chiropractic Association here is like top notch. We have 80% membership of our state, and they really know how to get things done here. So I'm proud to be a part of that association for sure.
Great. I love it.
Wait, I know we're getting ready to wrap up, but I have like a burning question.
Yes.
Okay. For anyone listening because you applied for that position with no experience, correct?
For the position at Life West?
No. Sorry, when you first got involved with the state association.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
No.
So for anyone listening who would sit there and say, well, I have no experience. So like she did that, but I can't do that. I wouldn't even know the first thing. So just like take 30 seconds, like what was the thought process of applying for a position on a board when you had 0 experience?
Yeah, they were looking for district representatives, members to get involved. And, it's hard to come by people that want to get involved. And I was like, you know what, this is my time. It wasn't very time consuming. And I was a voice at the table. I was representing my community. So, yeah.
So instead of experience, you said, well, I have a voice, so I'm going to show up.
Absolutely.
That was my question.
I wanted to represent.
I know, but I want everyone to know that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Well, listen, we're coming down to our witching hour. We're going to have to hit stop recording button pretty soon. But always in our Life West, we always ask our guests 2 questions. Just an innate response answer. It can change tomorrow, but that's what we're going to do right now. So we're going to move into that. So first question, Mary.
I'll ask you the first question. Okay. So if you could go back and talk to Jen the first day of chiropractic school, what advice would you give her now?
Know how to study, put the time and effort into it, and be involved.
Perfect.
Cool. All right. The second question. Second question is, now you're talking to Dr. Jen, who just graduated yesterday. And knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to the brand new Dr. Jen?
Show up, be there, especially if you're your own secretary. Be there, or have that phone number forwarded to your cell phone all the time. Because if you're not answering the phone, you're not knowing patients that are going to be walking through your door.
Yeah. I love it. Because you know what? I wonder how many people we miss, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, we could probably build a bigger practice on the ones that we miss than the ones that we get, that we catch.
Absolutely.
It's great. Wow. That was great. Great, Dr. Jen. So good to see you. So good to spend time. And we didn't really talk about Life West, but people will get to come and visit, the Life West Bellevue campus that you're at right now. And it's going to be making big waves in the profession now, but wait till we start really rolling up and doing all the great things that we're going to be doing there. And you're a big part of that. So thank you. Thanks so much. And thanks for being with us.
I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. And to our audience, thank you. Thanks for checking in with us. These Life by Life Wests are really a pleasure. I mean, we're always talking to someone who's usually 18 years or younger in practice, and just listening to what's that pulse right now going on, from the new graduate up to about 18 years or so. And it's palpable. So thank you for being with us. Thanks for continuing to check in with us, because we drop these every other week. The opposite weeks is our Life West leadership line, and check in on those, or check in on all of them. We've got some great things happening. And of course, with Dr. Jen at Life West Bellevue, there's all kinds of really fun things happening around the Life West community. But I want to just keep remembering to love those around you and take care of those around you. And I learned a big lesson today just about miscarriages and the things that we can do. There was a lot of gems that were dropped today, so you might want to repeat this and listen to it again. This is now out on a podcast also, so you can listen to it as you're in your car or doing exercise, whatever you want to do. But thanks for being there. Thanks for spreading the word, and thanks for sharing these with others. Until we meet you again, keep loving those around you. And, Dr. Jen, and from Dr. Mary, and go Detroit Lions for a victory tonight. Unless you're in Kansas City, we got to root for the Kansas City Chiefs. But please just know that we love you. Know that we care about you. We'll keep coming back at you every week with another episode. And until we see you again, we'll bid you adieu and say, keep loving those and hugging those around you. Bye-bye.